third hour of the show does kick off with you being reminded that there are lots of opportunities for you to invest. In the world that we are looking at, the business is that investment is one of the most crucial aspects in anything you do. But how do you do the investment? Zabu is a platform by Altices Africa that makes your investment rich with value and, of course, big on expanding. But speaking of that, Altices Africa says do something new. How do you do something new? Dial *292# if you're an MTN subscriber, and then initiate your registration for an account with Zabu. That is with your NIN, the national identification number, and then you start investing in different bonds and securities. Now you invest in the bonds that you wish to invest with, as low as 15,000 Ghana cedis as the minimum amount of your investment. You can open an account and start investing. After 24 hours of your registration, you'll be able to invest. These markets open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. Eastern time. Zabu says my money, my future, and Altices Africa says do something new. Just to remind you quickly is that these particular markets are closed during weekends and during public holidays, but they will be open Monday to Friday on a daily. Well, and speaking of investment and also growing as an individual, you cannot grow without something to inspire you or something to motivate you and push you forward. And as a matter of fact, we now get into our business tips and quotes, and of which we start with our business tip of this early Monday morning. Which tip does definitely give you a motivation to kickstart off your business day? Let's have a look at our business tip of the day. Business tip says learn from your customers. As you grow your business, listening to feedback from your customers is crucial. It can be easy to weed out negative feedback, but the truth is both positive and constructive criticism can bode well for your business. Well, get feedback and learn from your customers, the tip says. As you start your business day to day, there are things that you need to steadily look at, probably because you as a business person want to grow. You as a business individual or a business-minded person want to see yourself become the best of yourself. You want your business to grow. If you're in the service sector mainly, you get to realize that you as an individual, first and foremost, the customers have to be your bosses. That is like the rule number one in business. The customers are your bosses simply because they bring the money. It's like they are paying you a salary. They are paying you money. Now, how do you learn from your customers? Is by getting feedback. It is very good for the growth of your business because it determines whether your business is valuable enough or whether people are in love with whatever you're doing, or there are some loopholes that you need to cover up. Speaking of covering up loopholes and all that, your customers, when your customers criticize whatever you're selling, or they aren't happy with the services you're rendering, then you will definitely go back and benchmark and change. If your customers are happy with what you're doing, you may either stay consistent or upgrade to ensure that you give them even better. So that is something when it comes to learning from your customers. So when you start your day, look at the kind of customers that are adding to your business. How are you going to relate with them, and how best can you be to ensure that your business is growing and also rotating around your customers? That is something that we should definitely and hopefully be part of in regards to ensuring that our businesses grow and we are learning from it. So that is the business tip of this morning. Now let's look at our business quote of the morning. And all right, now Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, says it is fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. He says it's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. And exactly, when we are to look at what is coming in from the world that we're living in, apparently, is in most cases, it is very good of us to look back at how we've been able to walk through the hardships of life and how we've survived in that particular aspect. But of course, sometimes when you look at the world that we're living in most cases, we always celebrate our success and never learn from the entire fraternity of the failures that we are actually facing. And so the co-founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, apparently says that, okay, it is very good for you to celebrate your success, because why then are you doing something that you're not going to be happy about? But then also remember to have the lessons behind you. Always remember that these particular failures are teaching you something new. How are you going to walk out of those particular failures and evolve? How are you evolving as a business person throughout the failures? Because remember, businesses have got hardships. There are lots of challenges within your business scope, but how you benefit from these particular challenges says a lot about your success, because sometimes these benefits, rather these failures, come to teach us certain things that when you take them positively and learn of them, then you will definitely be growing as an individual, and your resilience levels tend to actually push you harder and help you grow and mature into a business-minded person. That's exactly what this particular quote is telling us, that hey, it is fine for you to celebrate your success. In fact, keep on celebrating the little success that you get every day. The more your sales increase, the more you celebrate, because now your business has started evolving. It has started growing to where you want it to be. But then remember, there are some lessons that you have to pick from the failures or from the little hiccups that happen within your business. And from there, the more you're adapting, the more you are definitely scaling up and pushing yourself, and as well as preparing yourself for the tough times that may arise within your business journey. So that's exactly what the quote is telling us. It is fine to celebrate your success, yes it is, but it's more important to heed more lessons, to heed on the lessons of failure. Let's look into that. Definitely, then you'll be good to go. Well, besides that, now let's go into more of the business updates this morning. Something regarding Uganda's coffee exports in the country, and more is coming up shortly in here. And now let's look at Uganda's coffee export value, which is expanded by 35% in the past year. These are huge figures. When you look at the value of Uganda's coffee export, expanding by 35% in the past 12 months, according to a report by the country's coffee regulatory body. The report issued by the Uganda Coffee Development Authority last week said that even though the quantity of the country's coffee exports decreased, the exchange earnings increased due to the higher quality of the exported coffee during during the same period of last year. Now, within the first year, if you're to look at the situations, the period under review is from November 2021 to October 2022. That's a complete of looking at the situations from there, apparently. Now, according to the report, coffee exports totaled to 5.83 million bags, that is worth 883 million bags, worth 883.24 million US dollars, which is, if you're to compare to the 6.55 million bags, worth 652.25 million dollars in the previous year, between November 2020 to October 2021. Now, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority said that the decrease in exports was apparently due to lower yields characterized by drought in most parts of the country, while the high quality was attributed to farmer training on what we call the best handling practices. Now, the other round, the coffee processors and the traders were trained on the best coffee post-harvesting handling practices, such as hulling of dry coffee of the 10% moisture content, rejecting wet coffee from farmers, good store hygiene, and avoiding coffee adulteration, as well as routine factory inspection and monitoring were carried out in all the regions, according to the same report. Now, Europe remains the main destination, and Mexico is an emerging market for the country's coffee export, according to the same report. Coffee is one of the major commodities prioritized by Uganda to boost economic transformation according to the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Now, there is also a figure that is showing that about 1.7 million households in the country depend on coffee production. So if you look at that, with 1.7 million of Uganda's households, getting more into the figures of Uganda's coffee exports, as Uganda exported in the financial year 2021 to 2022, exported 6.26 million bags of coffee. Now, those particular bags valued at 83.7 million US dollars. Now, if you're to look at that, if you're to look at some of the countries where Uganda has its coffee exports, the huge numbers, there is Algeria, we do have Sudan, Morocco, Tunisia, on the African continent mainly, Tanzania, South Africa, South Sudan, Somalia, and Kenya. Those are the main markets on the continent. Not forgetting the other markets internationally, when you look at Europe and also look at the United States, but not as much as we export to our African neighbors in here, according to the reports coming in from here. Now, coffee exports for the 12th month, June 2021 to May 2022, according to the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, is total to 6.35 million bags. That is worth 837.14 million, compared to the 5.8 million bags worth 540.54 million the previous financial year. So this is an increase. If you look at Uganda's coffee exports, this is a huge increase. But when you look at that, 7 million, according to another report, is that 1.7 million rather, households in the country are depending on coffee. But also looking at the issue to do with value addition. When coffee exports for the 12 months growing in that way, clearly shows you how important it is for us to input more of our funding into the agricultural sector. Now, Uganda's coffee exports for the month of June amounted to 530,365 60 kilobags of coffee. Now, those particular ones, June this year, were valued at $83.7 million. If you look at this, comprising of 444,197 bags of Robusta, of course, which is the bigger type of coffee in here, and which is valued at $60.98 million, and 86,168 bags of Arabica coffee valued at 22.82 million, valued at 22.82 US dollars. That was a decrease of 14% in quantity, but also an increase of 43% in value compared to the same month last year. Now, farm gate prices for Robusta Chiboko averaged at 2,600 Ugandan shillings per kilo. Then Arabica parchment is at 10,500 Ugandan shillings per kilo, and Draga at 9,500 per kilo. When you look at the exports ranging in there, we export more of the Robusta. That is, of course, what we produce more, followed by Arabica. There's also Draga in there. Now, Robusta exports accounted for 84% of total exports, higher than 77% in May 2022. And if we are to continue looking at this by comparing quantity of coffee exported by the same type that was exported in the same month of last coffee year, which ended June 2021 last year, Robusta decreased by 21.44% in quantity, but increased by 21.37% in value. The decrease in Robusta exports was mainly attributed to lower yields this year. Now, these yields were characterized by drought in most of the regions. And now, this led to a shorter main harvest season in central and eastern regions, and also reduced harvest from Greater Masaka and southern western regions, whose peak is expected in July of 2022. So that is something that you get to realize more and more. Now, Arabica exports increased by 62.77%, and then also there was an increase of around 174.46% in quantity and value, respectively, due to an on-year cycle characteristic of Arabica coffee production. So when you look at the countries that we export most, our neighbors, Kenya, Tanzania, that's a very good number. Looking at also the mere fact that we export to Morocco and Tunisia coffee. And early this year, us withdrawing from the International Coffee Agreement of 2007, lots of criticism coming in from there. attacking the government and also the key stakeholders in coffee, attacking the government over the Pinetti deal, the Pinetti saga in Uganda's coffee industry. Later on, the president of the country, President Yoweri Museveni, did reveal that if they are to crucify anybody regarding the Pinetti saga or argument, it was him, apparently. But looking at some of the situations regarding how we can grow into our coffee industry, you get to understand that Uganda's coffee, if you're to look at the agricultural industry, is one that is still lifting the flag high in regards to exports. Now, looking at the value addition part of it, or perspective from Uganda's coffee, looking at the top quality coffee, as you can see, well blended coffee in that same cup. When you look at some of the cafes and restaurants within the country now, people are actually taking coffee, ready to drink coffee, because coffee has always been a good idea. If you're to look at some of us who normally love taking a good cup of coffee, but also there has also been a very huge outcry with the fact that people who are adding value to coffee are still asking questions like, why is it that we're still importing coffee, yet we also have our coffee in huge supply in the country? But also, besides that, when you look at the other value addition purposes for coffee, these also includes alcohol, there's also non-alcoholic beverages. Look at the mouth drinks that you definitely have to be taking, that also include caffeine and all that. Coffee being one of the most important of the agriculture products. I'm saying that other agriculture products are not important, but coffee is quite important as well. If you look at the higher levels of where the 10 exporters out of the 55 companies which performed during June exported 74% of the total volumes of coffee in Uganda. So out of the 10 exporters, out of the 55 companies that we do have, 10 of those exporters which performed quite well. Italy maintained the highest market share of 40.25%, followed by Germany. That is at 11.34%. Now we're looking at the wider markets. Remember, from the African markets, I did mention of countries like Tanzania, Kenya, Morocco, Sudan receiving Ugandan coffee. But also on the other hand, looking at the situation, Italy, there's Germany, where Uganda is exporting this particular coffee. Now also coffee exports as of July were projected to be 600,000 bags. And so we shall as well give you more details at the end of the financial year to see how the coffee industry is performing steadily, if you are looking at how it will perform. Because there was a statement from the Uganda Development Authority that, well, as you can see, we are growing bigger. The update is clearly showing you that the coffee value is expanding, and it has expanded by 35%. This is a figure that was released as of between October 2021 to November 2022. So that increase of 35% clearly shows you how the different details regarding coffee performance, and the mere fact that 1.7 million Ugandan households are benefiting on coffee growth and production. So that is exactly why you need to be knowing whatever is coming in from the coffee industry. But well, if you look at the other situation that coffee can grow, or that our coffee exports can grow, it takes us back to a time when we looked at the cooperatives and how the cooperatives shaped the entire coffee sector. Because through the cooperatives, you get to realize there was a lot of growth into this coffee sector, lots of export figures growing every other year. I'm not saying that they're not growing now, because this 35% clearly shows you that they have grown in the past year at a sector that looks at being rejuvenated back and also recovering steadily from the shocks that it was getting, not only due to COVID, but of course due to other factors that are relied onto the economic details and the global marketing situation. So that is coffee for you. But also briefly, according to the report, the exports totaled to 5.83 million bags. That is what 883 roughly 2.4 million US dollars. That is if you're to compare to the previous 6.55 million bags that was sold off the other year between the same period, that is October to November. You get to realize that the bags previously was $652.8 million dollars. They were worth $652.5 million. Now this one has registered a 35% increase of 883 1.24 million US dollars. That is a slight increase in there, according to the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Now, the other decrease in the exports was due to lower yields. If you're to look at that, characterized by drought. If you're to look at the reason as to why we had few exports, is that there was low yields, which was characterized by drought in most parts of the country, or in most part of the coffee growing areas or regions within the country, while the high quality was attributed to farmer training on best handling practices. The coffee processors and traders were trained on the best coffee post-harvesting handling practices, such as handling of dry coffee of 13% moisture content, rejecting wet coffee from farmers. Then there is good store of hygiene, and also considering the issue to avoid coffee adulteration, as there is also details to do with what we call routine factory inspection and monitoring were carried out across the region, according to the same report by the UCDA, that is the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Then also coffee is one of the major commodities prioritized by Uganda to apparently boost economic transformation as well. Not only that, according to the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, about 1.7 million households in the country depend on coffee production as well. Well, on the other hand, in regards to the other update, if you're to look at this, Uganda's Prime Minister, Right Honorable Robin Nabanja, is in Tokyo, Japan. So if you're to look at what is going to be making some good news, is that there is a 4-day visit in Tokyo from that is courtesy of the Ugandan government. So the Right Honorable Prime Minister is in Tokyo, Japan, for a 4-day visit. And this particular one is going to be regards to participating in the Asia Pacific and African Women Economic Summit for the bilateral relationship strengthening. Remember last week President Yoweri Museveni was in Hanoi, that is in Vietnam, on a 4-day visit. That particular visit as well was characterized with key discussions regarding investment and also economic empowerment between the two countries, Uganda and Vietnam. But also now, the Prime Minister moving to Japan, Tokyo to be more precise, is something that you look at and clearly understand that Uganda is looking at the investment strengthening and also positioning itself ably well amongst the key business countries across the world. Speaking of Vietnam now, there is Japan, which has always enjoyed a very, very huge situation in regards to business. Okay, now besides that, now let's have a look at more of the social media trends that have been happening as of today morning. Some of the social media trends are rotating around the border industry. Remember, there is a worrying reality about the daily border business, and sadly, for as long as we moving using borders, because most of us do use these borders as they effectively beat traffic in the morning, evening, or even in the afternoon. So quite a situation whereby you get to accept that 90% of Ugandans do use these borders, and only very few don't use the borders, or in one way or the other do not continuously use these borders but have used them anyway. So when you look at, there was a report from the Kampala City Council Authority. If you look at the social media trends as happening of now on the Twitter timeline trends, the key rate of productive Ugandans due to border disorder is over 50%, according to the city mortuary. And the city mortuary of KCCA receives up to 40 bodies a day from the border related accidents. That's a very huge number. 40 bodies a day from border related accident. That is according to a report from Kampala City Council Authority. Now, the recent border census carried out by KCCA in collaboration with the Ministry of Works and Transport indicates that 94% of the borders on track do not have driving permits, or what you would call riding permits in the border industry. Now, 94% do not have insurance, and then 73% have no logbooks, if you're to look at the border industry. Now, we've got 98% of the no PSVs with no licenses. Now, when you look at the other border riders in the city, cases have the 234 border riders that have been captured by KCCA and the traffic police have no national IDs, so they have no sense of identity in this country. Now, only 157 border borders met all the requirements to operate public transport amongst the thousands within the city. Now, that also takes us back to questioning whether, if you look at the transport supporting apps within the country, look at the Safe Border, Bolt, Uber, who are actually supporting some of these border riders, how come we have only 157 border borders that are meeting all these requirements? Bigger questions here. Now, Kampala City Council Authority is on the issue of curbing the crisis in public transport, as well as streamlining the border operations within the capital. That is something that we are steadily looking at now. KCCA has, says that if they are receiving 40 bodies a day from border related accidents, you'll get to realize that this is something to worry about. Any other person within the border industry, however much it is saving time, you need to tell that border rider of yours, or the border guy, as we normally call them, to at least ride you safely. Pay caution to the road signs, the movement on the road, because some of them entirely don't follow any guidelines whatsoever as they are riding throughout Kampala. It is always busy. Traffic sometimes is actually over convenience due to the huge numbers of border riders within the city. But these numbers are a bit scary. Some of these are the trends on social media. You can engage more on that and the industry. But of course, for more of these particular updates, you get more of the situations regarding business, and also getting more in regards to the border industry, is that you'll be getting more updates here in our daily programming with Uganda Tukole, as well as understanding more of in-depth discussions with the Business Today Bulletin every 9 p.m. Monday to Friday. Well, with that particular update, we shall definitely return with more from sports business. Another Becky Headlines from there, and also Barija Andrew will be in here to give you more from the entertainment world. Speaking of which, the world of business as it's supposed to be. Stick around. I'll be right back after the break. Good morning.